Carl Ransom Rogers was an affluential American psychologist and among the founders of the humanistic approach to psychology. This is his story. Rogers was born on January 8, 1902, in the suburban Oak Park, Illinois, near Chicago. His father was Walter Rogers, a civil engineer. His mother was Julia Cushing. She was a housewife and devout Pentecostal Christian. Carl was the fourth of their 6 children. Rogers was intelligent and could read well before kindergarten. He attended grade school in Oak Park, Illinois, near Chicago. Among his classmates were Ernest Hemingway and Frank Lloyd Wright's children. At the beginning of high school, Carl's parents wanted to move them to a more wholesome community, so they moved to a farm 45 miles west of Chicago. Carl Rogers, what do you want to be when you grow up? Living on the farm, he acquired a knowledge and appreciation for the scientific method in a practical world. His first career choice was agriculture, and he attended the University of Wisconsin in Madison. At age 20, following his 1922 trip to Peking, China, for an international Christian conference, he started to doubt his religious convictions. To help him clarify his career choice, he attended a seminar entitled, "Why Am I Entering the Ministry?" After which he decided to change his career. But after 2 years, he left the seminary to attend Teachers College at Columbia University, obtaining his master's in 1928 and a PhD in 1931. He taught psychology at the University of Wisconsin in Madison beginning in 1957, and it was during this time that he wrote one of his best-known books entitled On Becoming a Person. Rogers continued teaching at the University of Wisconsin until 1963. Rogers' theory of self. Part of Rogers' idea of self is the self-concept. This includes aspects of one's being as well as one's experiences. The second subset of self is the ideal self. The ideal self is the self that one wishes to be. It contains the attributes that most people aspire to possess. When a large gap occurs between self-concept and ideal self, it indicates incongruence and an unhealthy personality. The step to becoming a person first includes the need for contact. Human contact, whether negative or positive, is an experience that is necessary to becoming a person. First, a person needs to know that they are accepted and held in high regard by others. This leads to positive self-regard because it builds up a person's esteem of themselves. Rogers believed that if all 3 of the necessary therapeutic conditions of congruence, unconditional positive regard, and empathy are optimal, then the following type of person would emerge. First, these psychologically healthy people would be more adaptable, and hence the persons of tomorrow. Secondly, these psychologically healthy people would be open to their experiences and would not distort or deny them. Persons of tomorrow would willingly listen to their inner selves. They would have a trust in their organismic selves. These individuals would not seek out others' opinions. Instead, they would deal with any situation based on what they alone felt was right. Thirdly, they would have a tendency to live fully in the moment. As part of their openness to experiences, they would exist in a constant state of fluidity and change. Because they are constantly evolving, each experience would be unique and something they had never experienced before. Rogers referred to this tendency to live in the moment as existential living, and he believed that persons of tomorrow would have no need to impress others or to deceive themselves. Fourth, the persons of tomorrow would know that they were loved unconditionally by at least one person. This would negate their need for acceptance and love from anyone else. There would be no pretense. What you see is what you get. Fifthly, there would be no boundary between conscious processes and unconscious ones. They would be able to bridge the gap between their real self and their ideal self because they have the self-confidence required to express whatever feelings they are having. Sixth, the person of tomorrow would be more trusting in human nature. They would never harm others for personal gain, but be there to lend a hand if needed. They would experience anger, but not strike out against others. And finally, because of all the aforementioned facts, the person of tomorrow would enjoy a greater richness in life than most people do. They would feel more deeply, causing them to live and participate more richly in the current moment. Here are a few highlights of Rogers' career. In 1945, he was invited to set up a counseling center at the University of Chicago. In 1947, he was elected president of the American Psychological Association. While a professor of psychology at the University of Chicago, Rogers helped to establish a counseling center connected with the university and there conducted studies to determine the effectiveness of his methods. His findings and theories appeared in his books Client-Centered Therapy and Psychotherapy and Personality Change. Thomas Gordon, one of his graduate students at the University of Chicago, established the Parent Effectiveness Training, also known as the PET movement. In 1956, Rogers became the first president of the American Academy of Psychotherapists. Here are a few final thoughts. Rogers continued to conduct therapy sessions, give speeches, and write until his sudden death on February 4th, 1987 in Pasadena, California. He suffered a fall that resulted in a fractured pelvis. And while he had life alert and was able to contact paramedics, had a successful operation, his pancreas failed the next night and he died a few days later. Rogers was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for his work, but sadly the nomination arrived just days after his death. The legacy of Carl Ransom Rogers still lives on and probably will for years to come.